Hello on a good Friday. This is your man Tony Wiggins here with Locked On Jaguars, getting ready to talk about the game this weekend. And I talked about it with some fans on social media, and they all came to the rescue and said that they thought this was going to happen. And I'm going to tell you what this is on this segment of Locked On Jaguars.
You are Locked On Jags, your daily Jacksonville Jaguars podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
That's right, man. It's your team every day. It's Locked On Jaguars. I am Tony Wiggins. There I am. I'm up on the screen now. You guys can see me. We thank you for making us your first listen here every day because it's your team every day, and we are free on all platforms. I want to tell you what we're going to talk about today. Before I do that, though, I got to let you know, man, that today's episode of Locked On Jaguars is brought to you by McDonald's, proudly serving communities since 1965. That's 4 years before I was born. That's a long time. McDonald's has always been more than just a place to get tasty, affordable food. It's an official and an unofficial community center. That's right. A big thank you to our friends at McDonald's for always being there. And just to let you know, I am loving it. All right, so here's what we got, man. Jags are going out to play Seattle, traveling to the Pacific Northwest. Did a poll yesterday. And the poll was very telling. So I'll give you the results of the poll, but I have to also let you guys know that the poll actually told a story to me. And I'll tell you what that story is in segment 2. Segment 3, I had a very interesting conversation with a friend of mine who has coached in the NFL, who's coached in college as well. He's been on the recruitment side of college, and he's also been on the training side of the National Football League. He gave me some information yesterday that'll kind of give you an idea of maybe why some of us expected something different out of Urban Meyer that we have gotten to this point. So we'll discuss that in segment 3. So a hint is that this training performance, how could it be better in the NFL than it was for college? I think that's a bit of a myth, and I think Urban, he wanted to lead with that, and I think he realizes now it's not going to work. And then 2, coaches are better. This is the creme de la creme. Coaches are better. Now, I know if you've seen it, we've been going back and forth with guys about college coaches versus head coaches. And I'll give you a scenario as to why they're better. It's different, though. It's very much a different game, and that's what Urban has had to adjust to. But first, let's go to my poll, man. I got to tell you the results of the poll. So I asked everyone, what did they honestly believe in their heart of hearts, basically, without all of their fandom, what did they actually think would happen in the game this weekend, right? What did they think was going to happen? And it was very telling because for me, what it told me was obviously folks will think with their emotions and tell you what they want to happen instead of what they think is going to happen. But most people were very optimistic and were pretty obvious of what they thought. So here's the question. Give me your expectations of the Jaguars game Sunday so I can discuss on Locked On Jaguars on Friday. And the outcome Sunday will be : I gave you 4 choices. Jags win a close game. Jags lose a heartbreaker. Jags win in a rout. Or Jags get boat raced. Of course, I think a lot of people were very, very amused by the term boat race. They said it looks worse than it actually sounds. So here you go. As expected, 61% of the 120 people who voted said that the Jaguars would win a close game. That's 61.7. It's almost 62%. Very, very high amount. The next closest was 18.3% said the Jags would lose a heartbreaker. And the last 2 choices actually finished dead even at 10% without a fraction behind it, that the Jags would win in a rout or the Jags would get boat race. That's our word of the day. Our term of the day, rather, is boat race. So doesn't surprise me that most fans think that the Jaguars are going to beat Seattle. And a lot of that has to do with the fact that Russell Wilson is in there and the fact that Smith is the quarterback. I keep forgetting that. Geno. The fact that Geno is in the game. Not only that Russell isn't there, but that Geno is there. So, and that has an awful lot to do with why most of the people think the Jaguars are going to win the game. There are some people that just aren't optimistic, and maybe they weren't Jag fans. Maybe there's people on my Twitter who said that the Jags are going to win a blowout or that Jags are going to get boat raced. I think the more likely or the more genuine people were the ones that either said they were going to win a close game or that they were going to lose a close game, because that would make up about 84, 85% of the people who voted, or maybe even 86 or 87. I got that bad Duval County math. But so, yeah, there you go. Most people thought it'd be a close game the way the Jaguars, some of the games have been, and then they would find a way not to win it or not find a way to win it at the end. It was very telling to me in a lot of ways. I want to wait to make sure I share them with you in segment 2, because regardless of whether you're a fan or whether you're not a fan, it told me something. And it kind of echoed something that I said earlier this week when I said that this is the most important game of the season. Because when you have the specter of expectation and you don't fulfill it, then it seems like the loss is absolutely worse than it is. After week 1, no one was expecting the Jaguars to win anything. Therefore, the losses weren't as heartbreaking. The losses didn't seem as bad. When they lose to Tennessee, it just didn't seem as bad. You know what I'm saying? When they beat Miami after playing a close game 2 weeks prior to that to Cincinnati, I think fans started to get optimistic. And then they beat Miami. They had the one turnover, but it was on the strip sack. But for the most part, they played well. And then you saw them leading with the people that everyone thought should have been their leaders in the first place. That being said, once expectation changes, then the reaction to the impending result of the next game will change. And I want to talk about that. And I want to do it here in segment 2 in just a second on Locked On Jaguars, man, because we got so much. And like I said, thank you again for making us your first listen. We got so much stuff that we want to talk about with you today. And we're going to do it here in segment 2 in just a second. After I tell you guys about McDonald's, once again, they're our show sponsor for today, and we appreciate that. They're proudly serving communities since 1965, and McDonald's has always been more than just a place to get tasty and affordable food. It's a place where friends and family can come and connect. Man, we used to roll through that playground, and I'm telling you, I knew that playground left and right. I knew every part of it, and that is until I got too big to play on the swing. But it's a place where classmates meet. We did that after school. They have dependable Wi-Fi. I had my coffee in my cafe in the morning, sometimes with my laptop, and I went to work. Win or lose is a place teammates, competitors, the home team, or their away team can go to recharge. I sent my kids to McDonald's often after their games at sports. And it's the place you look forward to stopping at on a long road trip to rest your legs and refuel. It's nothing like getting some hot fries while you're traveling, I can tell you that. Listen, man, here's what you need to do. Head to your McDonald's to refuel and reconnect. Did somebody say Locked On Jaguars team watch party? I think so. As long as you get me some nuggets with some hot mustard, I'm good. I am loving it. I am absolutely loving it. And I'm going to do this. Ba-da-ba-ba-ba. I'm loving it. I hope I put the right B's and D's in there. But you get the point. McDonald's, man. McDonald's has been a part of many of our lives for a long time, especially mine. You make sure that you make it a part of your kids and your grandkids' lives as well. We're going to roll along here, man, on a Friday. That's right. It's Good Friday. I should have known that because it's the day before. It's a big game here in Jacksonville, man. They're playing a big old college game that they play here every year. Florida, Georgia, or Georgia, Florida, whoever's listening, whoever wants me to put their team first, I just did it. So, but the only thing that's first here is your first listen is Locked On Jaguars. So big game here. Jaguars aren't in town. They're traveling out of town, and a lot of people are going to want to. Let me tell you what's going to happen. There's going to be a bunch of people here that ain't going to leave their house on Sunday because they're going to do too much on Saturday, and all eyes will be glued on that TV. The weather's changed a little bit. You can roll your windows down here. It's not hot. It's going to be cool this weekend. And let the air blow through your house. Turn your AC off. Get your nice beverage, some little snacks, and get ready to watch the Jags and the Seahawks. And hopefully the Jags will win. The expectations are now high again for them to win this game. I did a Locked On crossover with Corbin Smith of Locked On Seahawks, and Corbin even picked the Jaguars to win a close game. So that's the first time I did a crossover in a long time where both of us actually picked the Jacksonville Jaguars to win. And that's why the fans are like they are. The fans, they got this feeling. They got this feeling that this is the time and this is when they're going to get it. And they're going to get 2 in a row. And that the Seahawks' weaknesses match up against the Jaguars' strengths and vice versa. So now there's a chance for them to separate themselves from those other doormat teams in the league. And I know being 2-5 won't do that in the standings, but in the mind of people, they'll say they won 2 and they were in 3 out of 4. They lost 1 game to a team that's leading their division. They were playing tough at halftime against a couple of other really good teams. People will start to move further and further away from the opener of the season against the Houston Texans and start thinking of what have you done for me lately? Okay, these last 4 or 5 weeks have been really, really good. So thinking that that's what the Jaguars are. If they don't win, we go back to week 2, the week between week 1 and 2. We go back to that build-up week because if they lose, and if they lose badly, if they lose a close game, it's not devastating. If they get boat raced like we've been saying, we might as well be right back at the Monday after the Texans game because that's what it's going to feel like. Even though that's not the case, it'll still feel like that to fans. That's why I say this is the most important game of the year because it basically, how that game plays will determine what the title is of the next chapter, which starts Monday morning. You get my point? Jags still improving. Jags still young, got to try to figure it out. Jags get win number 2, which is something they didn't do last year. So you separate yourself from that. Still not ready. Is Urban the right guy for the job? I'm telling you, it could run the gamut on the things that you could hear based on the performance that comes up this weekend. Especially with them coming off of a bye week. You come off a win on a bye week, you got to put your best foot forward. It could also mean some things for some players. If Josh Allen keeps continuing to play well, then folks will start thinking about Josh Allen the way they used to think about Josh Allen. And that was even over the top for me because there were people that thought Josh Allen was like all-world, top 5 pass rusher. I never thought that. I always thought he could be a very, very good player, though, and that if you had another guy like him or a guy who was like him just a little bit better on the other side, then they both could be good, right? Because he's shown that. Is Shaquille Griffin a pure number 1 corner? He's going up against a number 1 wide receiver, so he's going to have his opportunity. You ain't going to stop him, but can you contain him? That's the key. Marcus Lattimore didn't stop DK Metcalf, but he contained him, other than the 184-yard touchdown. So reputations aren't at stake, but reputations can be made and created in a game like this from individual players. Trevor Lawrence, a lot of talk about what Trevor is from a lot of guys on TV that are stat watching, and this is why I tell people numbers don't lie, but they don't tell the whole truth. So he's completing 59% of his passes. He is an accurate thrower of the football. You have to watch the game and watch the situation as to why he does what he does. A lot of times he's throwing the ball away. He's trying to avoid, bad negative plays. He may throw it in the dirt, and he may get it dropped by someone. So, they've been playing from behind a lot, and when you're playing from behind a lot and you're trying to hurry up and go down the field with the ball, you take more chances. And this is the part of this where I try to tell people the difference between Gardner Minshew and I ain't gonna say a real quarterback, but a real quarterback that has a real shot to take you to a championship. You can't always play it safe. At some point, you got to gun that thing in there. It is going to be a requirement for Trevor Lawrence to continue to do what he's doing and learn how to make a few throws that only a handful of guys can make, because that's why only a handful of guys get to the point where we want Trevor to go, because there's only a handful of guys that can do it. So a lot from the standpoint of narratives that can be established will be determined on Sunday. I'm going to give you an idea, though. Like, if the pressure goes on Urban, if the pressure goes to Urban Meyer, like if they lose and they lose poorly, or they lose because of bad coaching, not putting the players in the right position, if you hear Urban saying, I got to do a better job come Sunday night, then everybody's going to continue to revisit the fact that, well, what juice are we getting from this squeeze with all of this hype and all of this stuff? Well, when he got here, what we thought we were getting was a taskmaster, a great delegator of authority, a great eye for talent, detail-oriented. So when any of those things start to happen, when you lose a game and everybody looks right at the coach, there was one time in college when I thought that he had to take the blame. He was at Ohio State and they played Michigan State. And Ohio State was undefeated, and they were on their way to the national championship. All they had to do was beat Michigan State. And for some reason, he didn't give Zeke Elliott the ball, and they lost like 14-7 or something like that. And after the game, Zeke Elliott said, I don't know why they're not giving me the ball. I mean, we literally just saw him a year before that run through, around, and all over Alabama in the national championship game on his way to about 250 yards. And we were like, the next year, in the biggest game of the year, he won't give Zeke the ball. So that's the only time I ever questioned him in college about his coaching ability. And then we get to the point where in the NFL, that's all everybody's been doing the whole time. They've been questioning Urban. Well, when Urban came in, he promised this. He said he's going to make this a destination place. Now you got guys in interviews saying nobody wants to play in Jacksonville. The guy's an idiot, but still, I'm talking about Kelsey up in Philly, but still. He hasn't been able to crush that narrative, right? Which made the whole staying behind, not getting on the plane and hanging around the bar and the little girl and all that stuff, the young lady, rather. That's why, because we're trying to change the narratives here, and you can't change narratives with that kind of stuff all over the air. I talked to a buddy of mine who, as I told you at the beginning, who's been in the NFL and he's in college in very good positions, and he understands strength of performance and all of these things. And I asked him, I said, is it possible that he could come in from college and actually improve that and be a leader in it in the NFL? I'm going to give you the answer that my buddy gave me, and I'm going to share it with you. And it gives you credence to why I think the way I think, in terms of, if that's all Urban can, he has to build on something other than that, because if he's dependent on that, then that ain't it. I'll tell you why I feel that way in just a second here on Locked On Jaguars. All right, man, you got to get on those Built Bars, man. I'm to the point now where if I run into somebody who's never tried a Built Bar that listens to this show, we're going to have a problem, because I have really been telling you about this. I feel like since 1972 that Built Bar is the best protein bar on the market. And it's a protein bar that doesn't seem like a protein bar because it ain't all waxy and chalky. It's actually covered with 100% chocolate. And they have 9 great flavors for you to try. And then over the next few weeks, they're putting out these specialty flavors, and they're giving you a little bit of extra stuff that you can reach for during the fall and the holiday too, man. So you might as well check it out at built.com. So what is going to be your favorite flavor? My favorite flavor is the salted caramel. Now you can go for the coconut, cherry, barcia, raspberry, mint brownie, double chocolate, strawberry, orange, cookies and cream, or German chocolate. I'll go for them too when I don't have a salted caramel. When I have a salted caramel, that's all I'm eating. And how can you get yours? You need to go to built.com and use the promo code Locked On. That's right. Locked On. I'm sorry, Locked15 is the promo code for this, not Locked On. Locked15, and you'll get 15% off your next order. That's right. It's Locked and 15. Make sure you go Locked15, and you get 15% off of your next order at Built Bar. If you're working out, don't worry, they're healthy too. Look at these macros: 17 to 18 grams of protein, calories ranging from 130 to 180 per bar, only 4 or 5 grams of sugar, and only 4 or 5 grams of net carbs. And you have amazing flavors, all tasty, all healthy. You don't have to worry about your diet. So it's Built Bar at built.com. Use the promo code LOCK15 to get 15% off. And by the way, check them out on Twitter at @bar_built for all the latest on social media. All right, so let me get to it here on a Friday. And we thank you for making us your first listen, as usual. I'm going to go ahead and drop this on you right now. In the last segment, I told you that I asked a good buddy of mine who has scouted in the NFL, coached in the NFL, coached in college, recruited in college, and now works at a Power 5 university. What's the strength and conditioning thing? He says, okay, here it is. Some of the best strength and conditioning coaches are guys you don't know. And some of them work at schools that you wouldn't expect, okay? They're guys in the industry that are just very good at what they do, and they're just very happy living where they live. They might have gone to the school, or they may love the town. So, there's some very, very good strength and conditioning coaches. He says, but one thing that they're doing is they're doing the things that the NFL is doing now. He says, so the difference between strength and conditioning in college and strength and conditioning in the NFL is the amount of kids you have. So usually when you're an adult, at some point you stop growing more, right? You get 23, 24, you're going to probably look the same way you look when you're 30. But when you're 17 and 18, you're not going to look the same when you're 22 that you did when you were 17 and 18 in a strength and conditioning program. So a college strength and conditioning program, it's a meat market sort of overview. Like, you got all of these kids and they're all different, right? But normally most colleges just have a way of doing things, and then they have some of their assistants monitor certain guys because of where they are in terms of their maturity. So it's really like just this broad boot campish way of doing strength and conditioning because you got so many people. So everybody kind of has to do the same thing, and then you sort of tweak it a little bit when you get to the individual players. In the NFL, everyone is looked at as an individual. They're all looked at as individuals. So the NFL strength and conditioning program is better. And now colleges are starting to do things the way the NFL guys. So these wizards that are in college have come and they've learned. And that's what separates Alabama from a lot of people, as I've been told. And I was told this by him, is that Alabama had like an NFL guy, a former NFL guy running their stuff for a long time. And I think they probably still do. It might not be the same person, but they get these guys individually up to par, up to speed, and ready to go. So when Urban says that that's what he's going to do, he's going to improve on that. Combine that with the fact that he said, in his opinion, there are no bad players, just bad coaches. And let me give you this scenario. To me, that means some guys I coached that were really good in college, they went to the NFL and all of a sudden weren't really good. It's not their fault, because I knew how good the guy was in college. It's not their fault. He's got to be the benefit of bad coaching. Every player that I thought would be great that ended up not being great in the NFL, it had to be somebody else's fault. It had to be the strength and conditioning. It had to be all. It's not. No. The only thing I think he could judge on that, based on what I'm trying to come up with here, is that when he came in here and he saw the Jaguar strength and conditioning program, and he saw their weights and he saw their facilities, and he sort of made it, from what we heard, allegedly an edict, or hey, if I take this job, we got to do this, 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 and this. We got to improve the strength and conditioning program. We got to get state-of-the-art stuff. From what I heard, it was almost as like, what is going on here? I had better stuff than this is at Ohio State. So he took the Jaguar situation, maybe, and sort of thought that this is just the way it is in the league, because most of the NFL teams is kind of standardized in the way that they do business. And that assessment is incorrect. Just because the Jaguar stuff wasn't up to par does not mean that every team around the league stuff is just like that. I can guarantee you the Patriots strength and conditioning program and facilities, and the Chiefs and the Cowboys absolutely looked nothing like the one that he took over here. So he could possibly be correct that he could improve the Jaguars' strength, conditioning, and performance and nutrition program, but also be incorrect in thinking that that is going to make him superior to other people in the NFL in that area. And it also could be incorrect that the statement that he made about there are no bad players, just bad coaches. Now you understand why he's getting to the NFL maybe, and now he's understanding that some of those players that he thought were good, like Philip Dorsett and some other people, and Tim Tebow, like, hey, they ain't that good up here against these guys. I mean, how could a man who's developed so many players and sent so many players to the NFL from Florida and Ohio State and Utah, how could a guy who should know what a good player looks like not realize that he doesn't know what a good player looks like in the NFL until he had to get slapped in the face with it, right? The reason why is because he probably, in my opinion, thought the guys that he thought were good in college, that were good, that were going to be good in the league, that when they got to the league, they weren't any good, that it was somebody else's fault. It was the coach's fault. Now that guy can play. I don't know what they did to him. I'll tell you what they did to him. He ran into another dude just like him from somewhere else. Now he's learning that these coaches up here are pretty damn good, right? Now he's learning that the players up here are pretty damn good. Now let me get to the coaching too, because there was some thought this week, like with the whole Mike Tomlin situation, why would I want to go to college? By the way, I don't think anybody trying to give you a job is an insult. I think it's a credit to who they think you are. That's just on the record for me. But there are a lot of people saying, why would he go back to college? That's a step down. Tell me where anybody ever thought Nick Saban, Joe Pa, Bobby Bowden, Eddie Robinson, Bear Bryant, in terms of coaches, tell me where anybody ever thought that those people took a backseat or a step down to anybody. None. Now, it doesn't mean the NFL coaches aren't better, but I will tell you this. It does mean this could be true, that the example I give you is this. And I know we're using the Pittsburgh Steelers as an example, but here's the example I give you. Coach LaFleur was the offensive coordinator of the Tennessee Titans before he got the Green Bay Packers job. And the Green Bay Packers job is a blue blood job, just like the Pittsburgh Steelers job. Coach LaFleur, as an offensive coordinator for the Titans, and their offense was 30th in the league, was not qualified to be the head coach at Southern Cal, LSU, Florida, and not even the Tennessee Volunteers. When is the last time you've seen a 30-some-odd-year-old coach, when it wasn't his alma mater, get hired to be the head coach of a blue blood Power 5 football team? Never. But somehow he was qualified enough to be the head coach of the Green Bay Packers. So now, when you start thinking about jobs, think about it. It's just different. It's a different scale. It doesn't mean that leaving the Pittsburgh Steelers to go. If that's the case, Saban wouldn't have left Miami to go coach Alabama. Some of these things aren't about steps up and downs. It's more about what level it is, what level of a job it is, right? You got former NFL head coaches that are position coaches at Alabama right now. Think about it. It's who it is. So when when Urban Meyer comes to the NFL, here's what happens. He thinks he's going to out-coach these dudes. He might be on that pantheon of great coaches because he was a Mount Rushmore coach over the last decade or the last quarter century. But I tell you what didn't happen and what he didn't account for. What he didn't account for was the NFL assistant that's been here for 26 years. That dude you brought up from college can't touch him. That's the difference. It's the assistant coaches. The guys that are career coaches, those Wade Phillips of the world, those guys that have been around forever, the John Butlers, those dudes I'm talking about. I'm talking about Bruce Arians before he got a job. Any guy like that, the guys that coaches know, or coaches know. And there are guys around the league that are like that. They've been around the league forever, but they are just grizzly NFL coaches. You ain't walking no jitterbug 29-year-old, 30-year-old coach out of college thinking that you're going to outwit and outcoach him. And I think that's another thing that Urban has run into. So you're not going to outcoach anybody. You're not going to out-scheme anybody. You're not going to out physical condition and perform anybody, even though you can improve the Jaguar stuff. My question is, what is he going to lead with? And if he goes up there and loses this game this weekend and takes us back to week 2, folks are going to start asking now, again, is the juice worth the squeeze? I can tell you what is worth it. You tuning in to me every day here on Locked On Jaguars, because it's your team every day and making us your first listen. Your second listen should be the Peacock and Williamson podcast. Why? Because Brian Peacock is an NFL analyst and Matt Williamson is a former NFL scout, and they do this show together and put it together every single day on the Locked On Podcast Network for you to check out, and you need to really listen to it. So make sure you listen to it and subscribe wherever you get your podcast. I'm out, man. It's Friday. Let's go see what happens Sunday, and then we'll come back Monday with another podcast like we always do. I'd always tell you this. Take care of each other. Enjoy the fall weekend. Until next time, it's Tony Wiggins with Locked On Jaguars, thanking you for making me your first listen.